Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tuesdays with Tally. This is episode 72, and I'm your host, Brian Tally. The mission and the goal of this podcast is to bring an engaging conversation that will add value to the lives of everyday people. We will inspire, encourage, educate, and tell the stories of America's finest men and women in an effort to motivate you to live your life to its fullest potential. Be sure to follow us on social media and on Spotify. The online information and handles are all located on the scrolling ticker at the bottom portion of your screen. Be sure to like and share the program as well. You can also in clicking the support button. Folks, I want to tell you about Houses for Warriors. Houses for Warriors is located in Denver, Colorado, and they provide assistance and help guide and direct homeless and at-risk military veterans and first responders into a self-sufficient status. Houses for Warriors provides a safe, caring, and loving environment that believes that every warrior deserves a hand up so they are more equipped to handle our modern society's fast-paced lifestyle. Growth is possible at any age, any stage of life, and for any life path. Warriors have spent their whole lives serving. So now it's time for them to be given a place to transform their lives. Houses for Warriors is having their very first charity ball this Friday, November 18th in Denver, Colorado, at the Wings Over the Rockies Air and Space Museum. It will be a great night of fellowship, camaraderie, and giving. I personally invite you to join me and the Houses for Warriors team for an unforgettable night. Get your tickets or leave a donation today by visiting housesforwarriors.org. That's housesforwarriors.org. Folks, we have a very special guest joining us on today's program. Carrie Bigford is a dedicated mental health coach who works with people who are struggling with their mental and emotional health. She provides processing tools and teaches a wide variety of coping skill strategies to people so they can move from survival mode, which is riddled with a life of anxiety, fear, and depression, and into a life of living, maintaining healthy relationships, and thriving. She currently maintains a private practice and volunteers in her community when she is not hanging out with her family. Carrie is happily married and has 3 children and 2 dogs. With that, we are honored to be joined by Carrie Bigford. Carrie, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me today and for that wonderful introduction.
Yes, ma'am. I sincerely appreciate you coming on. You are an effective advocate in the community as well as a staple here in East Texas and in the greater Houston area. And you have been given the voice of voiceless for many years. And, you offer hope to a population that is a vulnerable population and an at-risk population. You are a tremendous asset with your knowledge and your coping strategies. They do save lives, in our community and abroad. So I am honored to have you today. We have a lot of people out there that are hurting. And I believe that you are a tremendous asset to this show today to help instruct and to help inspire others in dealing with some loss, whether it's post-traumatic stress or anxiety or depression, on how to get that tool bag and to use those tools that we all have readily available to us, but sometimes we just may not know how to use them. So that's where you're going to come in today, and you're going to help guide some folks out there that they may need some help. So again, the pleasure is all mine.
Yay. Okay. Well, again, thank you so much for making my role in the work I do with others seem so important. But the reality is, I'm here like a highly skilled Sherpa to carry your gear and map out the course, but I don't want to take any credit away from any single person that I've worked with. Every single person that I work with does the work themselves. I provide the resourcing and the encouragement and the experience to kind of hold that space for you as you climb to your own summit. Everything that I do with people is all self-coping skills. There's lots of reasons for that. One, our culture doesn't actually teach coping skills, which I find amazing and a deep bummer. Our current messages in society, are drink it out, drug it out, or ignore it. It's terrible advice all across the board. It's not a coping skill. So I really focus on self-care tools because I find the traditional therapeutic model where you sit down and talk about things forever like a hamster wheel, but don't really get any strategies to help you in the moment, wasn't really for me. So I made a very conscious choice to proliferate coping skills that are self-care tools so that you can manage your own emotional landscape as much as possible, because nobody knows what you need better than you do. And I am just here to help you unpack and sort.
Carrie, let's go back to what you just said. You said that there's three, the drinking, the drugs.
Drugging, and ignoring are the three predominant societal messages. And the drugging is not necessarily recreational drugs, although it can be. It can also be SSRIs. It can also be antipsychotics. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to necessarily be illicit drugs when I talk about the drinking, drugging, and ignoring.
No, I know this all to be true. I've ignored some of my own issues. I do a lot of the drugs, not the bad drugs, like the cocaine and all that stuff. I'm talking about prescription drugs, drugs that I'm, that I need to take to get through the days.
Pharmaceutical drugs.
And I'm starting to learn more about other choices and other holistic approaches to start coming off some of these pills. But you're exactly right. People drink to cover this stuff up. People will take drugs to cover this stuff up, and people will ignore to cover this stuff up. And the more you cover it up, the bigger problem it gets. So can you explain how you said that our culture isn't really set up for coping skills because we throw these other three items at them constantly, and we don't really, train or instruct people on how to cope?
Yeah, unfortunately, we just don't have a culture that really supports discussions about what do you do when you experience a deep loss, or what do you do when you're just not getting your way, or when you're up against a really strong internal obstacle, to do something that you need to do, but you just can't seem to help yourself get there. And why is that? We tend to really just either ignore it entirely, or just not give you actual tools to help move through it, or they tell you to go see a therapist every week until you die. But that's not necessarily super helpful either. And none of that is really resourcing individuals to look at and process their own stuff, whatever that is. Because everybody who makes it to adulthood has a pretty good storage room full of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when people come to you, with that stuff, with that baggage, how do you start to sort through it all and to begin to go through everything in that bag that they're unloading on you? And how do you begin to develop a strategy and a plan that could, one, educate the person that's coming to you for help, as well as give them the skills that they need so they can begin to unpack that ruck and go through each problem, as they see fit through the knowledge and the expertise that you give them?
Okay, that's a great question. People come to me in all different levels of functionality and amounts of stuff, right? So usually the first thing I do is start with an inquiry process. Just talk to them and find out where they are. Ask them where they feel they would like to help with first, right? And then I almost always begin with one of my favorite Swiss Army knife utility tools of coping skills called EFT tapping, that I will use to kind of, what I like to affectionately call, clear the dead wood from the rivers, where we get the little blockages out and we kind of take down the level of the chaos, whatever that is happening for you, however that's manifesting in your life. And we kind of do a general cleaning through an EFT process. We use tapping points. Clients learn by modeling in sessions with me. So we are working together from the first session to use EFT in particular to kind of clear away a lot of the first level trauma, to kind of get more clarity about where you really are and what's really happening for you. And then you're learning as you go. We communicate in emails afterwards to kind of help you with homework to figure it out. But I like to start with that one because, one, you don't actually need a lot of language to use it personally. And language can sometimes trip people up when they're learning new skills. So you can use it on your own non-verbally as you're experiencing whatever it is that's upsetting to you. It's highly evidence-based, so it absolutely clears, right? EFT is one of the tools that I use with veterans who've experienced either combat PTSD or military sexual trauma-related PTSD. It's an extremely valid tool. I was a part of a research project called the Veteran Stretch Project for 3 years, where we did a 6-week protocol with the veterans. And you could see, as they went through the process through functional MRI scans, that the trauma centers in their brain were firing less. And then by the time they got to the end of the protocols, it was firing not at all. So that means you're actually changing the way that your brain is looking at those experiences. So that's definitely one of the reasons I lead with that technique. And so that can persist for a few sessions, right? Because as we clear away the deadwood, then we begin to purposely move the river flows where we want to moderate them to get everything kind of a nice, healthy river system, if you're doing that analogy. Just really help you kind of clear everything out. But at the same time that we're doing it together, you are getting a kinesthetic memory of going through the actual physiological tapping points. You are also getting the emotional benefit of having that burden be lifted, because we clear an awful lot together in a very short period of time in session. That is a huge part of having me as a part of the team versus trying to do it all on your own. And then it becomes a natural transition and flow where you just begin to naturally handle more of your own stuff throughout the process, because your skill set continues to gain every time we work together. And the baggage overwhelm consistently goes down, because in every session we're removing huge chunks of that.
So we've already discussed the unhealthy ways to deal with traumatic type events, anxiety, depression, through the drinking, drugs, and the ignoring it, just kind of putting it away, as that bag grows and grows and grows to a point sometimes where it could just explode.
Yeah, it starts to leak out over everything.
And then we have a healthy way, as you explained, EFT tapping. Could you describe what EFT tapping is and give our listeners out there perhaps a free sample of what that may look like?
Yeah, so EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, although it's traditionally known as tapping because it's a better descriptor than the fancy long name. So most people, when they're talking about EFT, refer to it as tapping. And what it is, it's a mindfulness exercise that combines mental emotional focus on stressors with physiological tapping on master meridian points. And so basically, you think about or talk about the things that are bothering you to activate the neural networks in your brain while you are tapping on master meridian points. And for tapping, it's side of the hand, top of the head, inner corner eye, outer corner eye, under nose, under mouth, collarbone, side, and then we have hands, fingers.
So when I tap, it's just as simple as this.
Yep.
Corner of my eye. So if I've got something that I'm holding on to, I could begin to just talk about the problems that I'm having as I'm tapping on the corner of my eye.
So you could be, I'm so upset that I have this problem. I've had this problem for a long time. It really bothers me. I don't think I'll ever get through it. You want to focus on the negative first, because that's what your brain is biologically geared to do, right? And then you also want to combine a statement of acceptance somehow, right? So traditionally, the powers that be educate people like me to do, I deeply love and accept myself. But I have found in practice with real people, the sad state of affairs is most people can't say that without that being upsetting by itself, right? So I usually like the phrase, I'm doing the best I can. So what you would say is, name something that's bothering you.
Pain.
Okay. All right.
My back and my neck.
Yeah. This is a great one. You can tap on physiological events. Absolutely. Right. So you can repeat after me if you want. Just model like a parrot. Right. Even though I have this pain, I'm doing the best I can to help me anyway.
Even though I have this pain, I'm doing the best I can to help me anyways.
Even though my back and my neck hurt every single moment of my life, every single day for years, I'm still doing the best I can to help me anyway.
Even though my back and my neck hurts every single day for the last 7 years, I'm doing everything I can to help.
My pain in this moment is at a level.
My pain at this moment is at a very high level.
Okay. And I'm doing the best I can to explore that.
And I'm doing the best I can to explore that.
Every day of my life is racked with pain.
Every day of my life is wrapped in pain.
I cannot do the things I used to do in my body.
I cannot do the things that I used to do in my body.
It's so much loss.
So much loss.
This pain in my neck.
This pain in my neck.
This pain in my back.
This pain in my back.
It's at a really high level.
It's at a really high level.
Almost all the time.
Almost all the time.
I'm trying so hard not to be hopeless.
I'm trying so hard not to be hopeless.
But sometimes it does feel that way.
But sometimes it does feel that way.
And I'm here helping me anyway.
And I'm here helping me anyway.
Even though my pain's at a high level.
Even though my pain is at a high level.
I feel it in my neck.
I feel that my neck.
I feel it in my back.
I feel it in my back.
All the time it's there.
All the time it's there.
And I'm doing the best I can to help me move it through.
And I'm doing the best I can to help move it through.
So that's a very basic, very surface, single round, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how you feeling?
I don't know, really.
You look more mellow. You okay?
Do I? Oh, yeah. I'm just trying to take this all in. I've never done any of this stuff before.
So the way that it works is it's using a concept in your brain called neuroplasticity, right? Which is if you don't use it, you lose it, right? So as we live in constant patterns, whether they be physiological patterns of chronic pain, whether they be emotional patterns of PTSD or dysfunction, right? Those create neural networks in our brain, which are like the webs that control all of our stuff, right? That's where all the ideas and possibilities and expectations come from, is our neural network in our brain, right? Through the limbic and the amygdala system, right? And so as you're tapping, you are bringing up the relevancy through that neural network, right? That's what the mental emotional focus does. And then through the physiological tapping points, the meridian master points, it's kind of like a hack for your nervous system. You are constantly sending neurotransmitter messages along your nervous system that say, hey, Brian, we're cool. There's not happening to us right now. We're fine. We're just looking at material. And it keeps your brain from recreating and making the ruts in those neural networks deeper, right? And so it creates a space where you can begin to shift and loosen the bonds that hold those neural networks together, right? And so over time, and not even that much time, you begin to shift the neural networks and you begin to have more space for other ideas and solutions to come up. And that manifests in your external life as changes in behavior, changes in reported pain levels. I mean, in my practice, I had a guy once who came in. He wasn't actually my client. He was the partner of one of my clients, but he had a broken leg. And I was just finishing up my preceptorship. So I was all on fire about how awesome tapping was. And so we tapped on his broken leg pain. And I didn't really think it would shift because it was an obvious physiological cause. He had a broken leg, right? And he reported it an 8. We did about 15 minutes of tapping together on just various aspects that were connected for him to that broken leg scenario. And at the end of it, we got him to a 2. It wasn't gone because he still had a broken leg, right? And it wasn't going to feel 100%, but he was able to reduce his experience of that pain significantly. And I have lived out that experience with many, many people who are in chronic illness patterns or chronic pain patterns. You can shift the experience of it and just get it down to the physiological piece, which is often much smaller than the experience plus the physiological piece.
I've got some questions, and I'm just going to use me as an example, and perhaps there's other people out there that may be like me, that these questions can really, really help. I'm taking some heavy notes here. So chronic pain is something that also triggers anxiety.
Absolutely.
And anxiety will trigger depression.
Lots of other things.
And so when and I do have severe anxiety, and I do suffer from severe depression, and I hate it because I have no reason to feel this way, because life has gotten so much better for me over the last 7 years. My family and I, we have come such a long way, and my family life, my children, my wife, it couldn't be better. But here I am still suffering from depression. And I don't know why. I don't know why I get these depressed feelings, but I'm never depressed and anxious at the same time. Like, I either have really bad anxiety and I'm not depressed, or I really have really bad depression and I don't have the anxiety. It's never the same at the same time. However, the chronic pain is always there. So the chronic pain kind of feeds into the anxiety. The chronic pain feeds into the depression. And depending on what's going on in life at that certain time, it can either boost my mood or it can lower my mood. And I've learned that being happy does reduce chronic pain. But I'm an alpha male. I've always been an alpha male. And I'm a lot more laid back now than I have been for my life, because just because, prior to my injury, I was this 110% go guy. But still to this day, I can't relax. So that's part of the reason why I take a lot of pills and stuff to help me relax. How does a guy like me, and I've tried yoga, and I think yoga is cool, but I'll do it for 5 or 6 times. And then I'm just like, I don't really feel anything. It's just, and then I'll try to go in a room and try to meditate. I can't
get there. Yeah.
And people say, oh, you need to meditate. Oh, you need to do this. Oh, well, that's easier said than done for a guy like me who can't relax. I can't find this peace to just stop everything and to go into this moment of like this out of body experience, like everybody always talks about, when they can go in there and they can clear everything away and put their body in a state of relaxation that you can't explain. It's like almost euphoric.
Yeah, meditation is a higher level skill for sure.
How do I get there? And there's a lot of Marines that are listening to this that can't relax either. And there's a lot of veterans and there's a lot of civilians out there, first responders. People can't relax.
There's a lot of humans.
How do we relax in order to make these things work? Like this EFT tapping. I almost feel like you need to be in a state of mind that.
EFT tapping is hands down, without question, the best, I cannot stress it enough, the best, most useful coping skill for humans I have ever come across. It is user-friendly. It is easy to learn. It is highly effective. When you learn with a partner, by the end of an hour of tapping with someone, you have enough to be able to take that afterwards and begin to work on yourself. And literally, you can begin to just feel as you're feeling using the points. It's a clearing tool. So all of that excess stuff that you have stored in your body, which I would wager is contributing significantly to your inability to relax. Because even though I agree with you, you have a beautiful life. I love your family, Brian. They're such wonderful people. You are such a blessed man. You also have come through an extremely multi-level complex trauma. And the thing with trauma processing is we don't actually start to process the trauma of it all until we're in safety, right? You're not processing the fact that a tiger is chasing you while the tiger is chasing you. You're just running like hell away from it, right? And the same thing happens in situations that don't involve large predators, right? We don't process what has happened to us as it's happening because we're just trying not to die, right? And for you, there was a very real element of just trying to survive, just trying to keep it together, just trying to move forward, right? And so now that you are in a place of stability, for someone like me, it seems perfectly reasonable and right on time that this is the moment that you would be feeling the depression and the anxiety and the inability to relax and move it out of your space. And it would be reasonable for me to imagine that when you try and meditate, it's almost really uncomfortable because there's just so much stuff that comes up when you let go of control of your mind that it would just become unpleasant, right? But totally reasonable. Humans don't process trauma in the flow of trauma because we don't have the bandwidth. All of our energy goes towards survival, whether that is like a metaphorical loss or an actual loss, or a metaphorical predator or an actual predator, right? We don't process what has happened until we're safe from it. And sometimes that can be decades. I mean, I've helped clients that are leaving severely abusive situations, either in their family of origin abuse situations or in a relationship abuse situation that went on for an extended period of time. And it's maybe, decades of abuse that they have felt. And it's now, 10 years later that they're safe enough to really process what happened. That's why some adults have big time troubles about their childhood when they become parents, right? Because them seeing their child have this beautiful, healthy life can be triggering for all of your childhood trauma and all of the things that were difficult for you to move through. It's reasonable.
What type of advice could you give people like me who can't relax but want to relax to try these coping skills like mindfulness and sitting in a dark room and trying to meditate, or doing this EFT tapping in a way that it could be effective? How can you help one relax to get to that state of mind to where they can begin to help themselves?
Well, I mean, if you're tapping on it, I would tap on how you can't relax. And I would get really specific about all the reasons that we can do that together if you want. It's a fun exercise. All the reasons you can't relax and all the things that are blocking you from relaxation and how much it bothers you that you can't relax right now. So you can tap on it individually. You can find a guided practitioner like me who can walk you through the process and help you move huge chunks at one time while you're also learning how to do it yourself. You can download Nick Ortner's tapping app. He's got like some iPhone app that has general scripts. Personally, I'm a little bit elitist about scripts because individuals aren't scripts, and so much of your particular files are your particular files, and a script doesn't quite do it. But if you're just learning, it can really help. You can also, so was I talking? EFT tapping. You can also download the Calm app. Calm app is another app that is a mindfulness app. They have guided meditations. They have all kinds of music. They have like movement meditations if you want to do like a movement kind of qigong or yoga-based meditation. They have all kinds of resources to help someone who doesn't really know anything about any of it, right? But I would, of course, recommend the best course is to find a professional that has the skill set you're looking for, that is able to individually show you the map, right? Because like with my clients, we do some clearing of the deadwood, but then we create a map of progress and we consistently walk down that road together. And so everything that they learn regarding the skill sets and the tools is specific for them, right? And so it's so much more effective. The number one feedback I get from people that I work with, and every single person who's worked with EFT, myself included, is how quickly it works. I abandoned all of my traditional education and tools that I learned because the tapping and the matrix reimprinting and all the other tools that I use that are self-care tools are so much better that I changed everything.
How does this work? I mean, I'm sitting here going through it and people are going to be like, that's silly. Like, what do you like? I'm just trying to figure this out.
It's that concept of neuroplasticity, right? So I talked about it before, how you're manually rewiring your neural networks, because the things that make us exist in our brain, right? In our nervous system. Everything that we think is possible, all of our previous experiences, all of our, everything exists in our memory, in our brain, right? And so the tapping does twofold things. So one, the physiological tapping tells your body that you're okay, because one of the big obstacles to doing any type of mental health work is your own resistance to looking at the material, because it's you locked it away because you didn't want to look at it. Totally reasonable. Why would you want to look at it again, right? So the tapping soothes your nervous system and it tells you that you're okay. So that is a really important thing. It also brings up the relevancy. So let's say it's chronic pain, it will bring up all of the relevant factors. Or let's say it's, fear of stuttering in public, it'll bring up every single relevant file you have associated with that. And so that can help you kind of block away the big neural networks, right? But I mean, you can see it. I encourage people to do some research on EFT tapping. You can see the functional MRIs yourself. It is quite amazing. Like in the Veteran Stress Project in particular, they tracked veterans for 36 months. Okay, so 3 years. And after the 6-week protocol, 36 months later, which is when the study ended, they still were showing no trauma centers in their brain firing with the stimulus that had them on fire at the beginning of the protocols. I mean, it really is quite astounding to see in a picture in a functional MRI. And that's been, my experience personally working with the techniques with myself and with others, is that you can't make yourself get back to that place once you've moved through it. Like I can agree, yes, that was a terrible thing. Yes, I'm sad, I'm bummed that happened to me. But I can't, it doesn't trigger me or upset me the way that it used to, right? You just spontaneously begin to shift through it. I know that these are conceptual ideas. Any kind of mental health strategy is so much easier to experience than it is to try and read about and understand, because the individual experience of moving through those issues within yourself is so unique that there's no like clear description of what it's going to feel like. It feels better. It feels less triggery. The anxiety just begins to get low. I get feedback from clients all the time. Like, I noticed I didn't scream at my husband for the last 2 weeks, and I don't even know when that happened, but he's all of a sudden, not so bad. Or I realized that maybe I'm not going to put my kids up for adoption, right? Like I could get feedback like that. People spontaneously begin to notice that things have shifted because you're clearing out the underlying neural networks and emotional baggage that held up that behavior or that idea. Does that make sense?
Yeah. See, my anxieties are different. It's like, like some people, they freak out, whatever. See, my anxiety is like weird. It's like, I worry about everything. I'm fearful of this. I'm always worrying about my children. I'm always, my heart will start to beat a little bit. And then I think, oh shit, here comes my panic attack. And then I force myself into a panic attack to where I've got to grab my emergency medication to kind of help calm me down. And it's horrifying. And like I said, I had to stop taking pain pills because that's how bad my anxiety is because I can't take both because of serotonin syndrome that I was almost a victim of too, because I was on so many pills that were working against each other in ways that could have put me in cardiac arrest, like I said, serotonin syndrome, and ultimately lead to death. But that just goes to show that I live in so much physical pain, but I choose to take the anxiety meds because that's how bad the anxiety is. And it's the worst thing that anybody could ever go through is suffering from severe anxiety. Yeah, I have good days, I have bad days, but I have got to remain heavily medicated to get through those days. Because if I don't, my body will tell me, and my heart will beat, out of my chest, and then the fear comes in and everything else. So it's almost like, I don't get mean or I don't get angry or anything like that. It's all just stuff that just sits in my heart that it puts me in a dark place at times. I have to go to my chair. I have to, to kind of escape the world. But again, it's getting into that. It's finding that peace and it's finding that tranquility that I cannot get my body into to relax enough to go through these coping strategies, because that is like a dream of mine. I would love to learn these coping strategies and legitimately work on it and improve it, and just start coming off some of my medications and stuff like that. But again, I've tried this for years and years and years, and my number one problem is I cannot relax.
So when you say you tried to relax for years and years, right? But you haven't the
only thing that relaxes me is when I heavily medicate, and then that puts me in a chair, and then I'll be in my chair for 8, 9, 10 hours, and then I'm up and I'm doing I'm getting up, and then and I'm ready for the day. I'm gonna do my podcast. I'm excited. And then you'll have that moment of anxiety, like I said, and it's like, okay, I need to take my pills. I need to sit down. I need to relax. I need to go on a walk. I need to do whatever it is to help clear my mind.
Yeah, you're kinesthetically clearing.
Yeah.
You're clearing through movement. So first of all, I want to validate for you that your anxiety isn't weird anxiety. Anxiety expresses itself as a huge array of symptomatology and behaviors. And the model you just described, I have seen versions of that. I can't even count how many times, thousands of times, so many times, right? And so if you were my client, let's in a hypothetical universe, I would begin to explore this feeling of lack of safety, because everything that you have described to me as a practitioner with all, doing this work, that to me is a lack of safety, right? You don't feel safe, so which is why you worry about so many things, right? So I would begin to look at that first, because that to me would be the overarching theme that we would start with, right? And we would use the same self-coping skills, right? Everything that I do with people uses tools that you can do yourself. It is true that in the beginning, I make it look very easy. And the reality is you're learning a new skill set. It's like you don't hop behind the wheel of an 18-wheeler and just go on a road trip. You have to go to school to learn how to get that car into gear and to not pop the clutch and to get out of the parking lot and not kill yourself on the road, right? I provide all of that to my clients, right? So I make it as easy and as effective as I possibly can. In time, you are learning how to use those tools, and we're connecting between sessions to see how your progress is going. And it makes it possible over time to get up, to decide to leave your medication at home. I have a client, I think her testimonial is on my website. She talked about the day when she left her house without her emergency Xanax, right? And what a huge day that was. I remember when she texted me about it. I get these wonderful messages from my clients updating about the time. And she talked about how she left her Xanax, and the day that she realized that the tapping would help her feel better in about 10 minutes, and the Xanax took a good 45, that she left her Xanax at home and never went back. And that was probably 3 or 4 years ago. And she still, she had crushing, debilitating, very publicly embarrassing panic attacks, very extreme panic attacks. And still the same techniques. We started with EFT. We added in some extra things because there are some other tools that are also self-care that would be too much to try and go into in this podcast. But she had her tools that she was using. And the minute she felt that happening in her body, because we had done so much work together, clearing the underneath so she could recognize that feeling as it happened, and she could get herself out of that panic attack place. And it has literally been 4 years since she had a panic attack or needed medication for it. And she's one of dozens and dozens, if not, over hundreds of people. Anxiety is one of the primary things that people seek me out for, because the tools are so effective for any level, right? So the gift in using a skilled practitioner versus trying to do it yourself, right? Even though they are self-care tools, the benefit of working with an experienced partner is they can help you figure out the map faster, for lack of a better way to put it, right? So I can use my lenses of experience and my intuitive knowing of working with you to help you get there quicker, right? To do the things that will clear the most amount of space the fastest to get you the biggest result the quickest, so that you can then begin to have more successes on your own, right? Everything that I do with my clients is geared towards the day when you blossom into a beautiful butterfly and fly away. It is never my intention to keep people forever. It is my intention to clear as much as we possibly can in the time we have together, while resourcing you to be able to manage your landscape as much as you want, right? Because I'm not necessarily going to be there holding your hand when the panic attack starts to come. I'm not going to be there when you see the person who triggers you, or whatever it is, right? I'm not going to be there when the kids are falling apart and you're trying not to lose it. Whatever that experience is for you, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be facing on your own. You're going to be in your moment. And so it's so important for you to know how to help you in those moments. And you just continue to help yourself in those moments. And as you get more skilled, you can create a moment, right? Because when we work in session, we are creating a time to do the work. It's not necessarily happening then. So I'm building bridges to those experiences for you. But when you're doing it yourself, or when I'm doing it myself, it's in the moment. I was tapping this morning in the laundry room because my 13-year-old refused to get up and get on the bus on time. I still use it on a regular basis so that I can continue to meet the world in the open-hearted way that I want to.
So you're there to help and rehabilitate and put these people back into living a productive and successful life in this fast-paced society that we are in 2022, and as well as in a world of uncertainty, as well.
However bad you think it is, it's only too late when you're dead. You are never too far gone to make progress. I have so many people who come to me. I'm usually like the last bottom of the barrel. They've been through the drug, treadmill. They've been through multiple different types of therapy, and they say it doesn't work for them and nothing is ever going to work for them. And then they come to me just because somebody somewhere told them that it was awesome and they felt bad enough to give it a shot. And then, oh my goodness, it works. I have yet to find a single person who hasn't been able to improve the experience of their situation with the techniques that we do in practice together.
I'm gonna start this. I'm gonna figure out a way to start doing this, and I'm gonna track it. I'm going to log it. For an example, I did a podcast on pain, trying to make myself vulnerable. Just to let people know that they're not alone if they're dealing with chronic pain, and I get these prescriptions that are mailed to me on a monthly basis, and I'm opening them up, and I'm like, God, I had one of these moments like, Brian, are you seriously have to take all these medicines? And it made me feel like I was less of a man because I can't go anywhere without my pills. Like if I go to the kids game, Jenny says, did you take your medicine? And do you have your medicine? Like, that's how I live my life. And that's not cool. So I had,
nor is it how you've always lived your life before.
Yeah. So I've got a gentleman that saw that from Colorado, and he says, give me your address and we're going to have a talk. And I'm sending you a bunch of different types of medicines that have been proven, and we're going to work together, and we're going to slowly begin to incorporate some of these medicines, and we're going to see if we can't get you feeling a little bit better with your physical pain, your emotional pain, your mental pain, and start putting you on this road to recovery. And like I said, not every day is bad. I'm a happy man.
I know you are.
But when you deal with nagging pain and nagging, it's tough to battle through that.
It changes.
Keep your happy face on.
Keep the path of chronic illness and the path of chronic pain absolutely changes how you can show up for others in the world and how you can show up for yourself. Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And then, and then sometimes my bladder fills up so much, and I'm like, and I can't empty it, and it starts. I'm like, oh my God,
it creates an anxiety response.
And it's just So there's so many different things and stuff. But I know I'm getting off topic here with that. But
I just want to say for you,
starting to take a different approach.
I think that's wonderful, and I'm glad that you're also doing a metered approach, right? Because you are where you are, and everyone starts where they are, and there's nothing wrong with wherever you're beginning, right? That's just your beginning. And I like how you are shoring up new coping skills and introducing them slowly, and then maybe considering removing some of the current existing pharmaceutical coping skills, right? But you're doing it in a metered and measured way that your body can tolerate. The same thing happens when I do emotional coping skills with someone. I'm not going to tell you to stop doing whatever you're currently doing. I don't make any suggestions like that. My clients decide on their own when they want to leave their emergency Xanax in the car and go without it. My clients decide on their own when they decide, that they're going to stop, whatever it is they're doing, right? It is my job to create the possibility for them and the tools for them to do that, to be able to shift and do something different. Right? Like maybe instead of having like a rage volcano moment, they'll go and process their big feelings first and then come back and have a conversation that manifests, in 1,000 different ways. Right. But it just helps you be able to shift. Right. And so for you, knowing a little bit about your story, more than I normally get to know about, clients in the beginning, I would definitely recommend working with someone, just because it will give you much faster results, and it will help you deal with kind of the very natural and very normal fear and resistance about looking at some of that material, right? Because there's such a big push to just forget about it, right? And it can be challenging to process deep trauma on your own, just because you don't want to go where you don't want to go. And when you're by yourself, it's really hard to make you go where you don't want to go, right? I'm happy to volunteer to go on a journey and show you some things that you can do on your own, and you can kind of make it a blog, a podcast, or whatever if you want. Or you're welcome to find someone else. Like, I'm certainly not foisting myself upon you.
No, I would love to.
The big thing I want you to know is where you are isn't where you have to stay. And you're so big about 1% every day. And these tools.
I still do that. I work on it.
I know. Every day. You really can shift wherever you are. This is not where you have to stay. And a lot of the chronic pain and the worry that's there, it doesn't have to be there forever. There is so much that you can do to help you in a way that doesn't make you feel like less. Because even though the pharmaceutical drugs are working for you now, and in so many ways have saved you, it's also making you feel like less, which tells me that you're looking to have something that doesn't make you feel that way. So, you know, it's better to learn with a friend, just like when you're trying to learn how to drive a car. You know, it's really dangerous to hop in the car and drive without any training whatsoever. But you certainly can begin to explore them through things like the Calm app or a tapping app or something. But there really is nothing like a trained, experienced Sherpa to haul the gear towards base camp.
Sure. You know, I want to get into something that I think is very important. We got about 15 minutes left here, and I don't want to not talk about this.
Sure.
The veteran community is prideful. And there's a lot of veterans out there and first responders that are hurting, you know, as well as anybody out there. Trauma happens to anybody and everybody every single day.
All the humans.
With everybody deals with it. But veterans have a different way of unpacking it.
I know they
hold
do.
on to it because they're very, very, very prideful.
They're very private.
22 a day is something that has been put out by the VA, and that stayed that
veteran
way for a very long time. But now the numbers are coming out like it's more like 40 veterans a day are committing suicide. And it's not always because of the wounds of war. A lot of it can be from the VA, or it could be other triggering, you know, events in their life, whether they're going through a divorce or if they become alcoholics, you know, whatever it may be. Now, the veteran population is an extremely vulnerable and at-risk population. And most veterans that are going through trying times, they can't be reached. They are, and I was one of those guys. I was in my room. I self-isolated. I didn't come out for years. And because I was done. I mean, I was done. And until that veteran or that person knows that there's going to be nobody that's going to come and save them, and that only you can save you, you are going to live this life that is egregious, and it's horrifying, and it's sad, and it doesn't need to be that way. But it takes that wake-up call. It takes saying, I need to get my life back. You get one shot, and you need to enjoy that. How can you reach a veteran out there today that doesn't want to be reached? And what type of advice do you have in trying to prevent these further suicides from happening? Maybe you can speak directly right now to like a husband or a wife or a father or a mother right now, and give them, hey, look, if you have a loved one that's going through this, or if you are going through this, this is the type of advice that I can offer you right now, just as a person, just as a friend. Like, how do we stop this? How do we reach the people that don't want to be reached?
That's challenging, because ultimately, even if you reach that person, they have to walk down the road themselves, right? Like, I will go dang near anywhere with a client. I have walked through some sketchy, awful, dark places in someone's space, right? But I'm not dragging you an inch, right? We go willingly and together, or not at all. So it's a special kind of suffering when someone very close to you doesn't want to be reached. And my advice to those loved ones who are close to someone who doesn't want to be reached is to do the work themselves to help themselves cope with that situation. Because sometimes when the loved one, like the wife of the veteran who doesn't want to be reached, can begin to meet and deal with her own feelings about this, that can create the space for the veteran to begin to want to shift with her. I would also recommend taking the veteran to like wounded warrior groups, to veterans affairs groups. Many of them use the self-care tools I use in my practice now. I implemented a lot of that through the Wounded Warriors projects in California. So you can go and meet with other veterans and talk about it and not talk about it. I've had clients that were silent in the first couple sessions, especially veterans. I love that when you ultimately learn these coping skills, if someone is willing, then you don't have to have an intermediary. You can eventually process entirely in your own space, right? And so I would say for someone who doesn't want to be reached, they don't want to be reached. And I would recommend working on that yourself, bringing them somewhere to just have them sit and be a part of it, even if they don't participate, right? Mm-hmm. And then just know that you have to support them anyway, right? So you love someone where they are, and you can say to them, even though I know you're hurting and I'm scared I'm going to lose you, like I'm still here anyway with you. And I'm here to hear whatever you have to say or listen to you in silence, right? Because sometimes they really don't want to talk about it and they never want to go through it. When I have clients with, deep military trauma in particular, we usually use dissociative techniques, which again, too much to go into on a podcast today, but there's lots of different levels that you can view your stuff at. And part of my job is helping you view it from a comfortable-ish distance, right? Mm-hmm. And you can move through even tremendous loads of trauma. And another one of the benefits of working with an experienced partner in the beginning is sometimes those unreachable people who are dragged kicking and screaming to my practice, which has absolutely happened, but are desperate enough to at least follow along, half-ass style, they'll get enough of a shift to come back again, right? And so that can be the benefit of continuing to present that loved one who's suffering to access support, right? To learn through osmosis. Because I've had people who will sit through a whole session and not participate or verbalize, and then it's the second or third that they decide to participate, because even though they didn't want to talk about it, they did start to feel shifts, right? Mm-hmm. So that would be, it's a really hard space though. So I always recommend that when you have a loved one who's unwilling to get help and you want to get help, that you get help for you, whatever that looks like, because it's really challenging.
What type of advice can you give people out there who care for these veterans or these first responders that go through these traumatic type events or are still living a life of just, anxiety, depression, pain, everything else like that. And they don't necessarily suffer from the ailments themselves, but being there.
Yeah, being a caregiver absolutely has an emotional toll.
Right. So they don't have it, but one day after all these years or months or weeks, it's going to take a toll on them. How can they unpack that? Is it going to be through the same methods? Because I can see people all the time. They never used to have anxiety, and now they have it because they're caring for people that are constantly around it. Like for you, for an example, you take in a lot of bad. I mean, there's not people coming to you because they're having the best day of their life. They're coming to you because they're having the worst day of their life. Yeah. How do you take in all of this negativity and all of this negative energy and keep it at work and not bring it home to your family? How does Carrie get through this?
So I definitely don't keep it. I process it and let it go, right? So the same tools that I am asking my clients to use, I consistently use myself. I also maintain a tapping partner, another professional that I work with to deal with the secondary trauma that's inherent in my job, because you're right. People come to me with things that suck. They do not come to me with the things that are beautiful and working well. And we take the stuff that sucks and we make it beautiful and shiny once again, right? But yes, I practice the same tools that I preach. I am never asking anyone to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. Mm-hmm. I love to use additional things like, kinesthetic clearing. I love to go walking with my dogs because it's wonderful here and beautiful here, and that feels really good. I love to do movement exercises because it feels good to move it through my body. I also volunteer in my community for the causes that speak to me, because that, again, gives me a sense of purpose, right? And a place to put it. But I may get covered in this stuff throughout the day, but I make a really conscious effort not to keep it, because it's not the working with it that harms me. It's the keeping it.
See, and I think that's what a lot of people suffer from in this country is they don't know how to process.
They don't know how to flow, which is why I do the things I do, because we need to learn how to flow better. And so really, it feels really complicated. It's one of those situations that is simple, but not easy, right? The steps and the tools are simple, but the process is not necessarily easy. You know, I show up to make it as easy as possible. And there are many others like me. It's not just me. Like, it's not like I'm the only one making it easy for people. That is not true. There are many others who are making it easier. And so then you just continue to go through the process. And really, in not as much time as you think, you begin to get huge chunks of weight lifted. And then that, you know, first huge off-gassing of massive, you know, stuff, so to speak, clears up so much space for you to really propel yourself forward. And so you just go down the path using the tools. And that's no different for me as a practitioner. It's no different than for the spouse or a loved one of the person who's suffering. It's you use the tools, how you use them, right? Because they're individual expression tools. So the way that you tap, for example, and the things that you tap on would be different than what Jenny taps on, right? It's different for every person, and it changes because you're a living, you know, evolving creature every moment of your life. And sometimes it'll be on the physiological aspect, like the pain. Sometimes it'll be on what the pain says about you and what you've lost because of it. You know, it changes all the time. But you do the tools and you move through the process and you clear. And then it just becomes easier and easier and easier and easier over time, until one day you look back and you're like, wow, it has been so long since that happened to me.
Right. Folks, we are joined by Carrie Bigford, a mental health coach. She has been processing tools and teaches a wide variety of coping skill strategies to people so they can move from survival mode, which is riddled with a life of anxiety, fear, and depression, and into living a life that is a thriving life and building healthy relationships. She has 20 years of practice. She does volunteer in her community. If there's anybody that's listening to this today, are you taking new clients, or can people reach out to you?
Yeah, I am taking new clients, but be advised, I am a popular girl. And so new clients are currently booking into like the end of January, beginning of February. I do have a wait list. And then I recommend, you know, booking out, because again, I do tend to be pretty busy. But you can always check out more about my previous clients' work and about the techniques themselves at my website, grateful-evolutions.com. And you can also reach out to me directly through that site. So there's lots of research links on there. If you want to go deep diving into the research of it, that's pretty cool. You can read some testimonials from clients that I've worked with over the years. You can learn more about the background of some of the other techniques that I provide that we didn't really talk about today. But basically, you can find me there. And if somebody wants to help clear and move through, I'm always wanting to make space to help people clear and move through. And I love that I practice catch and release mental health skills. So I catch you for a while and we clear a bunch of things, and then I release you into the world. So there's always room for more people to come in, because I have no intention of keeping you. It's my job to resource you.
Good. To rehabilitate.
Yes, to rehabilitate and let go. Catch and release.
Not to be a doctor that's going to be there, you know, for the people that are out prescribing all these pills that want to keep you.
I am not your guru. I am not your guru. I do not want you to call me forever. I mean, you're welcome to. I love getting updates from clients. Like that is the truth. I love it when I get, I love that. That makes me so happy to hear from people years later that it's still different, right? That they still can't believe that it's so different. So that's always really joyful for me. But yeah, it's a really wonderful life. I've been so blessed.
You are very good at what you do, and you heal a lot of people. But folks, you heard it right
themselves. They heal
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
I just
They have to be
resource
willing
them.
to,
They heal
put in the work.
themselves. Yeah.
GratefulEvolutions.com is the way, is the website, GratefulEvolutions.com. Anyways, I want to thank you for joining us today, Carrie. We sincerely appreciate everything you do and continue to do for our great nation and our community.
Thank you, Brian.
For Tuesdays with Tally, this is Brian Tally. Good night, Semper Fi, and God bless.